Welcome to today's explainer. Look, if you've been diligently spending a small fortune on fancy yogurts and probiotics, but you're still not feeling that ultimate health you were promised, I totally get it. It turns out when we actually dig into the science, there's a surprisingly simple daily habit that can completely transform our gut health. And spoiler alert, it has almost nothing to do with buying more expensive supplements.
It's incredibly frustrating, isn't it? You try literally everything, you follow all the wellness blogs to the letter, but you still feel bloated, tired, or just off. It's like you're completely lost in this gut health maze, totally focused on exactly which specific bacteria to add or what trendy product to buy. But the research, it shows we've been looking at the problem from the wrong angle entirely. It's absolutely not about just throwing more good bacteria at the wall to see what sticks.
Okay, let's dive into this. Your gut isn't just some biological tube. It's a massive, sprawling ecosystem inhabited by an estimated 40 trillion bacteria across roughly 1,000 different species. And these generally fall into three factions. You've got your good bacteria, making up roughly 20%, the bad at about 10%, and then a massive 70% are what we call opportunistic. These opportunistic ones, they're basically swing voters. They just side with whichever group is winning at the time. So here is the massive paradigm shift. The goal is absolutely not to eradicate all the bad bacteria down to zero. Honestly, that's impossible. It's all about managing the balance of power.
But hey, balance isn't just about total numbers. It's really about variety. Just imagine a city where every single person is a baker. Sure, you've got a huge population and obviously plenty of bread, but man, if you need a doctor or a carpenter, you are in serious trouble. A city of only bakers is incredibly fragile. Well, your gut is exactly the same way. If you have trillions of bacteria, but they are all the exact same type, your internal ecosystem is super weak. A thriving metropolis, on the other hand, has endless variety, meaning whatever crisis hits, someone is equipped to handle it. And this brings us to a really foundational concept: biological risk dispersion. See, when you have a highly diverse gut microbiome, different bacteria have different specialties. If your diet suddenly changes, or if you get sick and one type of bacteria's function drops, another bacteria with a similar but distinct skill set just steps right in to compensate. It prevents a total ecosystem collapse. So diversity is quite literally your biological safety net. And believe me, you definitely want that safety net, because your gut is essentially your body's shadow boss. It's secretly pulling the strings on almost everything. I mean, yes, it controls digestion, constipation, and bloating. We know that. But it also regulates your immunity. If your gut is a mess, you might find yourself catching colds constantly. It even dictates your skin's turnover rate. Putrefactive products from a bad gut can actually circulate in your blood and cause acne or dry skin. And incredibly, thanks to the brain-gut connection, this shadow boss heavily influences your mood, your sleep quality, and even your stress levels. It is all connected, which is just mind-blowing. So, the big question: how do we actually cultivate this diverse, thriving metropolis of a gut? Well, the answer comes from a massive citizen science initiative led by UC San Diego called the American Gut Project. And they didn't just study a handful of people in a lab. No, they analyzed over 10,000 mail-in stool swabs from people all across the US, the UK, and Australia. Then they cross-referenced that physical data with incredibly detailed surveys about what these thousands of people were actually eating and how healthy they felt. So, the crucial point we get from all this is the number 30. This is the absolute golden metric that emerged from mountains of data. The researchers found that the single best predictor of a healthy, diverse gut microbiome was eating 30 different types of plants every single week. When they actually compared the data side by side, the contrast was staggering. People who ate 30 or more different plants a week had vastly higher bacterial diversity than those who ate under 10. But it wasn't just about diversity. The 30-plus group naturally produced way more beneficial substances inside their bodies. And incredibly, their microbiomes actually showed fewer genes associated with antibiotic resistance. A diverse gut essentially leaves absolutely zero open real estate for bad resistant bacteria to settle in and take over. Now, hang on, before you start throwing out all the meat and dairy in your fridge, the study made one thing very, very clear. Strict dietary labels like vegan or vegetarian are not the deciding factor for gut health. Look, you can be a vegan who only eats highly processed wheat and soy, and your gut will still suffer. It is strictly about the variety and number of different plant types you consume, regardless of whatever else happens to be on your plate. And this brilliantly illustrates why variety works. It really comes down to a kind of fermentation relay race. You see, different plants have completely different cellular structures and fibers. So, one specific bacteria might be an absolute expert at breaking down the fiber in, say, a chickpea. Once it does, it produces a byproduct. Then, a completely different bacteria takes that byproduct and ferments it further into something else. It's a chain reaction. If you lack variety in your diet, this relay race basically drops the baton and you totally miss out on the final health output. And the ultimate prize at the finish line of that fermentation relay race? That is the production of short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs for short. When your diverse gut bacteria break down a big variety of plants, they produce these SCFAs. You can think of them as magical little substances that provide direct energy to your cellular walls. They keep your gut barrier incredibly strong and literally prevent bad bacteria from leaking out into your system. They are absolutely crucial. Okay, I know exactly what you might be thinking right now. 30 different plants a week? Are you kidding me? Do I have to eat giant, expensive, time-consuming salads for literally every meal? Let me stop you right there, because the answer is absolutely not. Getting to 30 is honestly so much easier than you think. And no, you don't need to drastically increase your grocery budget or overhaul your entire lifestyle to do it. Let's start with rule number 1. We are talking about weekly totals, not daily. You do not need to cram 30 plants into your Monday. Take a breath. But there is a catch. Volume doesn't equal variety. If you eat 3 bananas in one day, well, that still only counts as one plant type for the week. Your gut bacteria really aren't impressed by your banana-eating stamina. But if you eat a bowl of soup that has carrots, potatoes, and onions, congratulations, you just scored 3 plant points in a single bowl. And here is the best news of all. You just need to broaden your definition of what a plant actually is. We aren't just talking about leafy green salads here. Your plant points can come from vegetables and fruits, yes, obviously, but they also come from beans and legumes. They come from grains like oats and whole wheat. They come from nuts and seeds. And amazingly, they even come from herbs and spices. That's right, a dash of cinnamon in your morning coffee or some garlic in your pasta absolutely counts towards your 30. How great is that? So we can break this whole thing down into 3 really straightforward, totally stress-free tactics to get your points up. Chunky soups, grain swaps, and utilizing the supporting cast. Let's look at how to easily execute these in your day-to-day life. Tactic 1 is all about upgrading your liquid meals. Take a standard bowl of miso soup, for example. Instead of just having the plain broth, throw in some mushrooms, toss in some chopped green onions, and maybe add some tofu, which, by the way, totally counts as your soybean plant point. With almost 0 extra cooking effort, you've just delivered 3 to 4 distinct plant types to your gut in one tiny little side dish. Then we have tactic 2, which honestly might be the most powerful passive hack of all: grain swaps. Staple foods are the things you're already eating every single day, right? So if you just swap plain white rice for a mixed grain blend, or swap standard white bread for a hearty loaf that has whole wheat, rye, and seeds baked right in, you are automatically accumulating multiple plant points every single day without actually changing what you cook for dinner. Tactic 3 is all about relying on the supporting cast. We really need to stop worrying only about those massive main dish vegetables. You can easily hit your 30 just by keeping a variety of small add-ins on hand. Sprinkle a pinch of sesame seeds on your rice. Toss a handful of mixed nuts over your yogurt. Add some fresh basil or dried herbs to your pasta sauces. Each one of those little additions is a totally unique plant type that's feeding a unique strain of bacteria in your gut. Now, I hear you. What if you're super busy, you eat out a lot, or you rely on convenience stores for lunch? Don't worry, there's a hack for that too. When you're eating out, just opt for set meals that naturally come with small, diverse vegetable side dishes. If you are grabbing food at a convenience store, grab a mixed grain rice ball or an onigiri instead of plain white rice. Pick up a minestrone soup, which is almost always packed with beans and veggies, or just add a small side salad to whatever you're already having. It's really all about making these slightly different, smarter choices. Now, a very, very important word of caution before you go wild. Do not try to go from 5 plants a week to 30 plants overnight. Seriously, if you suddenly flood your system with an entirely new arsenal of varied fibers, your gut will literally panic, and you will likely experience a lot of bloating, gas, and discomfort. Nobody wants that. Treat it like a game of slow progression. Try adding just 3 new plants this week, then next week maybe try for 5 more. Build your internal metropolis gradually. So it's time to step out of that frustrating maze of expensive supplements and start actually looking at your spice rack, your pantry, and your produce drawer.
Remember, your ultimate gut health relies on the diversity of the metropolis you build for it. I want to leave you with this final, simple question to kickstart your journey today. What one new plant are you going to add to your plate today?